I love music, having been raised in a musical family, but I can't listen to music when I'm throwing pots, for the simple reason that it's almost a meditation. All your senses are involved, and the whole three aspects of eye, hand, and brain work together to make the pots you make. I choose to work alone, probably by force of temperament. I've always been very happy in my own company, and most of my interests have been solitary pursuits anyway. So that was never really a problem for me. When you're throwing a pot, and it's a pot that you've made before, the muscle memory kicks in. You're not quite on autopilot, but you know what to do, and you're still making lots of split-second decisions about getting it right. It's physical, working with this strange material that is not like wood or stone. It doesn't have a grain. It's incredibly malleable and plastic. And yet, out of it, you can create very precise forms or very loose forms. It's sculpture in motion. You develop a very special notion of space, spatial awareness, and how to use the hand in space to get the pots that you want. One's relationship with clay changes because of its working characteristics. As clay is worked, it dries, and so you adjust the techniques or change technique according to what you need to do from one day to the next. I mean, another way of thinking about it is that you're a slave to the pot until it's completed. My parents are Australian, but my father's side of the family are Lebanese Australian, hence my surname Saba. My father trained as a musician. He was the first of his generation in Australia to win an overseas music scholarship. And once he settled in London, it was a case of developing his career as a concert pianist. And that meant he would tour overseas everywhere. He loved going back to Indonesia, and he would bring back shutter puppets and batik and other textiles, which we grew up with on the walls of the living room at home. They became my friends. And so, in a way, being accustomed to Indonesian art paved the way for an interest in Japanese art later on, which was to inform my work as a potter. I used to have favourite tools to use, but there's always the danger that, that tool might go missing, or it might not work, or it might even break. So I've always tried to adopt a more flexible approach to my technique, which was something that was given to me by Kevin Millward. I knew I wanted to be a potter, but I needed guidance, and that realisation led me towards an apprenticeship. When I left him, he said to me, "I'm leaving you with a skill set that you can use either as a full-time potter or as a part-time potter." And I think this notion of flexibility is key to what we as craftspeople do. I discovered pottery at Dartington Hall School. I was between the ages of 10 and 11, and I think at that stage I discovered an interest in working in 3 dimensions rather than 2 dimensions. But it wasn't until leaving Dartington and transitioning to boarding school in Canterbury that I rediscovered pottery, and then it took on a greater meaning for me. Because the pottery teacher at King's was a well-known potter by the name of Geoffrey Whiting. When he got an inkling of serious interest in pottery from his students, he would test them intellectually. And of course he introduced me to the potter's wheel, which I've been using right up till the present. I used to work with gas-fired kilns, and that meant staying all night and watching the kiln like a hawk. It's almost like an animal or a dragon because it breathes fire. Working with gas kilns helped the transition to working with electric kilns, which are perceived by a lot of people as almost inanimate in comparison, but they're not. So I've biscuit fired, and now I need to apply a bit of wax to the pot. I apply a wax emulsion resist to the bisque in order to control where I want the first of the 2 glazes to be applied. I like to use a sort of a lopsided or angle, often using a sloped upper portion of one glaze, often a darker or mid-tone, next to a paler underbelly. And I've started using that on my vases, my teardrop vases. The pot then goes back in for a second firing, which is not the final firing, but the sinter firing. And the purpose of the sinter firing is to fire harden or fuse that glaze to the bisque. Teapots are a labour of love. In terms of how they're made, the body and the lid are made at the same time so that the lid can shrink at the same rate to fit nicely within the body. The spout detail is added separately. It's made initially in a press mould, and then as it's dried out, it's then added to the body, and then the handle is attached separately. So I tend to think of it as an exercise in hand building rather than traditional throwing, as it's an assemblage. And then, you know, together with the teapots, of course, you need teacups and creamers. And in a strange sort of way, as much effort really goes into making the cup that feels good in the hand. The handle needs to be of a certain width. I always use the idea of the cup holds you rather than you holding the cup. If you're having to hold a cup, then you're conscious of the function of it, and it doesn't seem to be as good. And of course, you know, the teapot has to pour well, so I tend to remove the glaze from the tip of the spout so that it cuts the liquid efficiently. That's part of the thinking behind this particular design of teapot. I've been interested in Zen since a teenager. That's always been in the background, subliminally, either from an Eastern or Western perspective. It's about concentration. Whether you're Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, it actually makes no difference, I think, but concentration is key. There was a time when I thought that the work that I made reflected rural values. I think people have wonderful rose-tinted preconceptions of potters living and working in the countryside. Not true. You've had potteries in city, urban areas for millennia. Pottery is a universal language, I guess, is understood everywhere. I mean, all cultures have pottery traditions. Wherever you go, Papua New Guinea, Japan, China, England. Wherever there's clay to be dug, you have a pottery tradition that evolves, grows up. And it's in different ways, whether it's household bricks. We're surrounded by clay even if we're not immediately aware of it. And we always have been.